Okay, so this plays out. We don't know exactly how long it's going to take. All they can do is print. Then, I mean, does this end up eventually, and this is sort of my hope, in some kind of socialist, fully socialist, universal basic income type social safety net that just dishes out these checks straight from the Federal Reserve. Let's say the Federal Reserve puts together central bank digital currency. You get your bank account directly with the Federal Reserve. I'm sure all the corporate banks are going to hate that, but it seems like it might happen. And then you get Fed bucks straight deposited straight into your phone wallet from every month. I personally think this might be the best way into hyper Bitcoinization, at least the fairest way, because at the end of this collapse, you might as well throw a little something to the plebs who have been suffering under this Cantillon effect for all these years. Do you guys see that as a possibility? Do you think we've sort of been trial ballooning this during the COVID response?
So, okay, this is going to take us pretty deep down the rabbit hole, because that's a really complicated answer, and it ties into what we say we'll do versus what we'll do at a mass level. So, if you think about what inflation is from a first principle, you're actually stealing from the middle class and poor and gifting it to the rich. So on one side, we know that that's true, and you're concentrating more and more power in the government to say they're helping the poor as a result of that. So now think through that process. Now we're going to do that faster to help the poor and remove the free market from this, because essentially on that path, eventually everything becomes a managed economy. And we know that how that ends, because you concentrate all power in government, and we know how that ends. So that's and what will they do? Because the thing they're doing is actually the divisive nature of society, but the society doesn't know that that's actually what's happening. The people that have their pocket picked are actually screaming for more assistance without realizing they're having their pocket picked. But that's what is likely to happen. So now let's imagine where we are in Bitcoin's cycle right now, and this ties into why I really care about. So I have to say this. I understand why a whole bunch of people in Bitcoin would say have fun staying poor, because you're so deep in this and you understand it so much and what's happening. And when you hear this FUD arguments and everything else, it's really, and you just get tired of it. And trust me, I do too. And it's just easier to come back with that. But now let's think about as a system unwinds. And Bitcoin is this thing that it actually could provide abundance for humanity. It's a really powerful instrument. But as Bitcoin unwinds that, the more people on Bitcoin and I mean the more people lower in the social economic ladder that understand Bitcoin, that it's not just for the rich, it's for everybody. The more people that understand that and can share in that, the better for society, because there has to be enough people willing to fight for this new monetary idea versus the old. But let's say it starts breaking down. Let's say today the system breaks down. And today it goes through deflation, a deflationary depression, like we're talking about, and it starts unwinding. And because that's the natural market, that's what should be happening. And by preventing recessions, we created something that's going to be the mother of all depressions. So that's what the free market says should happen. And the other side of that is concentrating wealth and power and government control unilaterally. Let's say they break down, it starts breaking down today, and we let the free market emerge. That means everything else fails. Banks fail, governments fail, everything else fails, and there wouldn't be a place to hide in citadels in that type of environment. But now think about what that means roads, bridges, every hospitals, everything else collapses. And what will society do if there's only 10% of people on Bitcoin? And we even think about Bitcoin itself. If you have a silent majority of 90% of those 10% of people that won't fight for the protocol, the existing system wins, or they create a digital bank, digital currency that operates, that takes control unilaterally because people demand it. And a whole bunch of people who say they would do one thing when they don't have any money will go for a short term of what the government says. And if you look at Myanmar today, on what ends up happening, if you look at through history of what ends up happening when a whole bunch of people are left out, it empowers a totalitarian state. It actually, and a lot of people say they would fight against it, but then don't. So at a high level, what I would say is we need more Bitcoin adoption, and we need it to happen slowly. Or we need it to happen fast, but we need it to happen. We don't want the existing system to collapse tomorrow. It won't collapse tomorrow. It's going to reverberate back and forth and everything else. But we need to get more and more people to understand this message that Bitcoin, it does empower human beings. It's an individual right and freedom, and it's a huge deal. It's way more than the money you'll make.
So I would agree 100%, Jeff. Really well said. And I'll point out that Jeff covers this very nicely in his book. I believe it's in one of the last chapters of the book, but you should read that. So universal basic income, yes. I'm not gonna cover that. Jeff did it beautiful justice. I just want to take a step back, and I believe that there will be a parallel system for a good period of time. All right, because fiat currencies take a while to fail, and after all, Argentina, in my lifetime, Argentina has failed a number of times. Isn't that crazy? I got my start in finance working at the Royal Bank of Canada in 1988. And one of my first projects was working on the Latin American Brady bond plan for countries south of Mexico, including Mexico, that had failed. And then Argentina fails again. And right now, Argentina is not looking so good again. So as long as the big boys in fiat, again, the G7, the G1s let's even call it G20s or G15s, they can continue this, and they don't fail overnight. And Jeff is right. And we don't want them to fail overnight. We just need to make sure we are operating a parallel system to store our wealth and help the people that Ponzi, the fiat Ponzi, is punishing. The fiat Ponzi is punishing the people that want UBI. We need to teach them about the benefits of a store of value that is, Bitcoin, essentially. And so I won't do any justice. Jeff has explained that. It's a social dilemma. There's a status quo bias in human nature. Yes, yes, yes. The good thing is, and we're lucky, let's be honest. You're very lucky. Brady, you live in a G1 country, and we're sort of lucky. We live in a G7 country, but rapidly becoming a less than a G7 country called Canada. And that does not make me happy. But imagine what's going to happen if Canada hits some of these, which it will before the US does. The US better take notice, because at one point in time, we were the US's largest trading partner. We may be number 2 now behind China. I haven't seen the recent statistics. But when your largest trading partner starts sewering, you better take notice, and I guarantee the US will. But all of the other defaults that have occurred up until now, and restructurings and currency crises, are in countries that I'm really sad to say most of these countries don't have the GDP of 30 of the top US states. Each US state has a bigger economy than these countries that fail on a regular basis. And that's why you have the IMF and all these other institutions trying to draw up things called special drawing rights and all of this. UBI, as Jeff said, the key component is it is actually harming the people that they're trying to help. And that's why we need to educate that portion as to why Bitcoin can move them from their continuous debasement, or theft, Jeff calls it, in terms, and it is in terms of inflation and the like, how they can change their position meaningfully in a store of value proposition.
I mean, yes, it would be harming them unless we can convince them and educate them to buy Bitcoin with it. And if that were the case, then maybe it would actually be helpful.
How about if a central bank actually did it for them?
Totally.
What if you actually had management of a country that was smart enough to realize, hey, it was gold, but gold is, sort of gold. This is so much better. And actually, I'm the CEO of a country, and I'm making a decision, a fiduciary decision for my stakeholders, which happens to be your population, and I am managing their risk by putting some of my reserves into the purest form of money ever invented. Okay,
just like people before them and corporations before them, but this is inevitable. This is what's going to happen.
And as soon as that happens, boy, oh boy, is there going to be a gap up. Michael Saylor calls it a rip. Call it a face melting rally, whatever you want to call it, but don't be short Bitcoin when that first central bank, and by being short, when I say don't be short, you better own some, because if you own zero, you're short, right? So you better own some for when that central bank comes out and says, you saw today there was a Japanese company that put 100 million. 100 million is a rounding error. What happens though is you get 100 million, and pretty soon you're talking billions, and then you're talking hundreds of billions. And oh my goodness, can you imagine if one of Canada's energy-rich provinces actually came out and said, Bitcoin is digital energy, and I've decided to embark on this reclaiming the natural resource base of Canada and getting paid in a beautiful form of money. Man, Jeff, would I want to be part of that country? And all of a sudden, all the people that are leaving Canada would actually say, hey, maybe I'm going to come back. And I actually personally know close to 20 people who have left Canada to move to tax havens in the Caribbean and the like. Each one of those people are not leaving because, they're really bullish on Canada, let me tell you, okay? And that's a bad thing, because as soon as you lose that tax base, you're not left with a whole lot left, right?
I said that recently to, I won't say who, but a politician. I said, listen, if Canada ever went after this, I'm leaving, right? And and with all the companies and everything else, they can go anywhere. And so if a government now starts threatening kind of Bitcoin and everything else, you can imagine what ends up happening to their economy. They best leave.
100%. That's there's a word in bond trade. Well, it's a word in everything, and unfortunately, it's true. But crap rolls downhill, right? And the people that are left are the people holding the bag. And hey, man, I love my country. I know you do too, Jeff. And I'm going to do everything I can for my 3 kids to actually further the Bitcoin cause, further the education process, and actually make that link. Digital energy, Jeff points out in his book, is responsible for human productivity improvements, the growth of cities. Every single invention is magnified by an increase in electrical productivity, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, that's what Bitcoin is. It's engineering. It's a thing of beauty that can save things. And you'll get your socialists out there that say, well, we got to tax this and tax that. Okay. I'm not saying don't redistribute a form of taxation or a form of wealth, but do it with a plan in mind, meaning take it to the extent that you're managing a business and you want some of your reserve assets in a form or a store of wealth that will someday be worth many, 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 many multiples of what it is today. Some of that's due to the fiat measurement unit of account, which is guaranteed to debase, but most of it is due to its scarcity and 21 million hard cap. Very, very simple supply and demand.
See, and I came to this, in writing the book and everything else, and because Bitcoin's a very small part of the end of the book, but I came to this in a how could a system work? Alternative, give me any solution, a plausible solution of a system that can work work that can increase abundance for people, to humanity thrives where we're going. And on finding none, and looking everywhere for what could this look like, you realize Bitcoin becomes that system. And until there's something that that is a credible something else, but I haven't seen anything, and you can imagine I'm open to it. Look all over, and I'm going to get a whole bunch of people on altcoins now and everything else. But finding none, I'm Bitcoin until something changes my mind, and I am all in.
This holiday season, give the gift of Bitcoin to your loved ones. Swan delivers your Bitcoin gift along with our world-class education and client service. Create a Bitcoin gift and wrap it with a custom message for your family and friends. Dash away with your gift. Your recipient will receive an email right away, that easy. Give the gift of generational wealth. Give Bitcoin.